Welcome, my friends, back to the fog. There is no pleasure to be found here, and no respite. The tales of the fortunate and the tales of the unfortunate all come to the same bloody conclusion. Those who once stood in the spotlight now share the same fate as those who came from nothing. All are equal in misery and death. And for Jane Romero, she understands all too well both the world of light and the world of darkness. Jane Romero was the daughter of Loretta Lawrence, a famous actress and celebrity. Her mother was always away from home, which eventually led to the divorce between her parents. Jane lived with her father, a struggling visual artist, and throughout her childhood, Jane was not sure whether she hated her mother for leaving her behind, or if she deeply admired her famous mother. But one thing was for sure: Jane Romero too yearned for the spotlight. Jane spent her teenage years doing everything she could to hone her natural talent at speaking, acting, and performing. She directed and starred in school plays, she auditioned for TV commercials, and she even took part in speech and oratory contests. When she reached her senior year, Jane actually was given the opportunity to interview on a radio station. The staff was so impressed with her that they offered her a part-time job, and from there she would go on to college to major in communications. She would quit her job at the radio station to pursue a job at a variety show. However, the show proved to be too safe and comfortable for the unique and spirited way that Jane performed, and after 5 months on the job, Jane was fired for her quirky behavior and ad-libs. She attempted to get a job again at her old radio station location with a pitch for a brand new show, but even they were not sure they wanted to do something as risky as her ideas. Because Jane didn't just want to be a star, she wanted to push the envelope and try new things, bring the audience something they'd never seen before. After 4 months of no work, Jane finally got a call from a TV producer who had seen reruns of her old work and wanted her to be the co-host of a floundering talk show called Quick Talk. Jane took the job, but she broke from the script of the show often and pushed more relatable topics and talking points, which appealed to the audiences and masses. Jane grew in popularity and eventually got her own spin-off show on the network called The Jane Romero Show. The Jane Romero Show covered controversial and taboo topics, and also personal issues, such as her feelings of abandonment thanks to her mother. Soon, Jane Romero was a household name, and her face and name were on beauty products and cosmetics across the nation. But Jane kept pushing harder and harder, never satisfied with her current level of fame. She wrote her memoir about her struggles growing up without a mother, which audiences loved, but critics panned it for its obvious tearjerker approach and believing it a half-assed attempt to sell self-help tips. Jane saw some truth in these claims, because deep down she realized that a lot of her yearning for stardom came from a feeling of inadequacy. No matter what she accomplished, she always felt like it wasn't enough to make her feel wanted or special. The busy schedule of star life also began to take its toll on her, as she became tired, stressed, and started making mistakes. But everything came to a head when her own mother agreed to be a guest star on the show. The day her mother came on the show turned out to be a disaster. Not only was Jane envious of her mother for all the attention she was receiving, but things boiled over terribly when during the interview, Jane's mother revealed that Jane wasn't actually her biological daughter. Jane was beside herself, and after the show concluded, Jane jumped in her car and drove towards her father's place. She needed to talk to him, to work this out, and to understand the truth. Had he lied to her, or was her mother the one lying? Her stress, anxiety, and exhaustion caught up with her. The road grew more and more cloudy and dark. She felt more tired, her eyes struggling to stay open. And then, all went dark. The police fished her car out of the lake, but never found a body. The funeral was a momentous affair that saw both Jane's father and mother present. And the Jane Romero Show re-released all of its old episodes to the public, with an opening credit at the beginning wishing her peace. Though peace was the last thing that Jane would be experiencing for a very, very long time. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and confess something. I left out her Tome lore in that recap because, look, here's the thing. Usually I insert the Tome lore. I try to insert the two so that they meshed well chronologically, but I left it out this time. And I did this for a reason, okay? This lore, what I just shared with you, is pitch perfect. I adore this lore. This is easily some of the best Survivor lore we've gotten so far. This is good. stuff. A great deal of relatable and understandable character drama, growth, and exploration of abandonment, depression, craving for acceptance. Because Jane is a character who yearns for glory, partly because she wants to make up for her childhood of loneliness, but also because she wants to prove she can be just as good as her mother. Then the bombshell drops that her mother might not be her real mother. Oh, that's incredible. This pushed her over the edge, and you gotta wonder, was it a lie? Did her mother actually feel threatened by the stardom of her daughter and decided to cut out the weed that was growing in her garden? That's some family drama right there. Like, think about it. You're a star, you're a celebrity, but then your daughter begins to profit and grow bigger and grow better and grow more famous. But she's growing famous partially because she's using her abandonment, the fact that you walked out on her, to make herself better. Well, now that might make you look bad. So then the mother says, oh, time to spill the beans and say, I'm not actually your mom. All that stuff you've been writing is kind of a lie. You've been feeling abandoned for no reason. I'm not your real mom. Like, oh man, that would be so great. But what if it's not a lie? What if her mother's telling the truth? Why would the dad lie? Had Jane's father been the one lying? And why did he lie? Was he trying to make Jane feel better? Maybe Jane's mother isn't someone to be proud of, so he made up a past relationship. There's gold in a story like this. You could make a movie out of this story. You could tell Jane Romero's story in such a creative way. This is good writing. This is a good story with a lot of twists and turns and questions that you want to ask. I love it. And then you get the Tome lore, which reminds me a lot of David King's Tome lore, because this tome basically pushes a story of prejudice and racism. It was clearly done with an agenda, and it's just so distasteful. It actually reminds me of a video that Drunken Uncle did a response to, and we might talk about that later. Okay, so in the tome, Jane Romero is still struggling to land a part. Every script she's given wants her to play a stereotypical or comic relief Hispanic character with an accent. And she hates these roles because they play up a stereotype, and it just shows how offensive Hollywood is and how intolerant and racist all these writers and producers are. When she finally thinks she's got a good part where she doesn't have to be the comic relief Mexican woman, she can be a very serious individual, she can be more like who she's meant to be, the director changes his mind and actually wants her to play up the accent some and be a bit more funny. So she shreds up the script and storms out, despite admitting in the tome earlier that she hadn't had a job in months and needs to work. And then right after that, she gets a call to appear on Quick Talk. Okay, so my problem with this tome is it's very forced, and it's also contrary to reality. Here's the truth. Sometimes you have to play up a role. Sometimes you do play a bit more of a stereotype. Why? Because that's what you're an actor to do. That's what an actor does. You sometimes have to pretend to be something that you're not. If you're an actor and you're upset with the director that they are asking you to play something other than yourself, then you're a shit actor. Plus, moral pandering aside, Jane, if you're a struggling actor, take the job. You said earlier it's been months since you've had a job. Well, it looks like you're out of options. Take the job. And you argued with the director. You tried to talk back to him. You walked out and tore up the script when you didn't get what you wanted. Lady, you do realize that casting directors keep in touch with each other, right? They will now know that you're not willing to play ball and work within the direction of the director or script. And if asked to play up an accent, oh, you'll just raise Cain. Now you might say, guys, you might say, Raven, that's not such a bad addition to her lore, is it? I mean, she's just upset that she has to play something that she doesn't want to play. Well, maybe, but you have to realize that what we already had was gold. The lore we had before this tome was perfect, and now it's undermined by a girl who now has a self-righteous issue with playing certain roles. Is she supposed to be a girl prepared to do whatever it takes to reach stardom or not? I thought she was a girl ready to ad-lib, be wild, be risky, shake things up, maybe play the controversial roles, push the envelope. Instead, she throws fits if she can't play things the way she wants to. She gets mad if asked to be more silly or speak with an accent. She's not an actor. She's just someone that no casting director will ever hire again. I refuse to acknowledge that this tome exists. It just does not exist as far as I'm concerned. And some of you might say, now hold on, Raven, don't you think that's a real issue? Don't you think it's okay that she stood up against this? Because aren't stereotypes bad? Here's the reality, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. Stereotypes quite often come with somewhere. They don't speak for the majority, but they have to come from somewhere. And if you are writing a script where you have a woman from Mexico who has an accent, who is working an underpaying job or a low-paying job because either she's an immigrant or she doesn't have the education to go into higher fields, Well, that is a role that exists in this world, and you may be asked to play it. And if you get upset and say, well, this is offensive to me because my family isn't like that, I'm not like that, I'm different than that, here's the reality. The director is not asking you to play yourself. The director is asking you to play a character. And this character may well not be a likable or appreciated character. Now you might say, well, won't that hurt her career if the film does bad? Actors are often not blamed for poor scripts or stories. Okay? For example, Nicolas Cage has been in some bad movies. He still gets work. Harrison Ford has been in bad movies. He still gets work. Why? Because regardless of whether or not a movie or script is bad, the actor can still be appreciated for doing a good performance. That's how it works. You turn in a good performance regardless of how bad the script is. Other people will see you later and say, wow, you really worked hard with what you were given. We want to see what you'll do with this. You start with the silly jobs to start out with, and then you work your way up. Guys, I'm speaking from experience. Like, take me, for example, guys. When I was in middle school, I was in a drama club. And we had a Sleeping Beauty play, right? We had a Sleeping Beauty pageant. And the girl who was supposed to play Sleeping Beauty dropped out. She couldn't do it. She was sick. She couldn't stay in school. And so we needed someone to fill in. I was asked to do it because I was very skinny, very short, my voice could be very high-pitched, and they asked me to do it. I agreed to it. It wasn't what I wanted to play. I thought it was way too feminine and way too girly and way too silly. I didn't like it. It was embarrassing, but I gave it the best I had because I wanted to make it what I could. I didn't want to disappoint my teacher. I didn't want to disappoint the other people who were acting. I didn't want to disappoint everyone who had put a lot of time and energy into doing this. I gave up a little bit of my dignity so that I could do that, okay? Not my favorite role to play. I think my favorite role to play was probably Hamlet, and that was in college, but that's hardly the point. Sometimes you don't get the role you want, but you still work with it, because that's what actors do. When I heard Jane Romero's original story, I'm like, there is a woman who was born for the spotlight. When I read her Tome lore, I see this is a woman who needs to be on a blog somewhere, because she isn't ready for the real acting world. Sorry. I'll get off of my soapbox now. This isn't my time to act. This is time to talk about her perks. Jane Romero, leaving her lore aside, has 3 pretty decent perks, one of which is an absolute nightmare if used right. They are solidarity, poised, and head-on. Solidarity is a nifty perk that rewards you for altruism. With this perk equipped, anytime you heal another survivor without a med kit, you passively will heal yourself at a maximum of 50% progression speed. In other words, you have the potential to heal yourself through healing others. Pretty good way to hurry the healing process along, I think, and a decent one to have with you. Poised is useful as well. Every time a generator is completed, you don't leave any scratch marks when you run for 10 seconds. Now, I like this one because if a killer notices your generator finishes being worked on and they go to investigate, they'll have a harder time tracking you down. What I like to do is finish a generator, run, and then go find a locker because they're not going to be able to notice my scratch marks anyway. And then head-on is annoying. When you hide in a locker for 3 seconds, if you perform a rushed locker opening action by hitting the sprint and exit locker button together, it will exhaust you for 40 seconds, but will also stun the killer if they are within range of you. I have met many Janes who do this just to mess with the killers, and it's annoying. I don't see the point in it unless they're about to search your locker and it may give you a fighting chance to get away. But most of the time, people bait me to their locker just so they can do this to me, then drop a flashbang, and then butt dance their way to the exit gates. It's a good perk, don't get me wrong, and I recommend it for survivors out there, but as a killer, I don't like it. But maybe that makes it a good survivor perk. Who knows? Anyway, that's Jane Romero. So final thoughts on her? Look, here's the thing about Jane. I want to like her. There are lots of things I do like about her. Her perks are pretty solid, and her original lore is absolutely phenomenal. It is chef's kiss incredible. One of the best survivor lores I've ever seen. What really drags her down are 2 things. Number 1, her overall design. I feel like they were trying to go for the hot, thick mama look. Look at her character model. She's one of the thickest mamas out there.
Damn Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy!
I think that's a little funny. Her whole Tome lore is about how we shouldn't stereotype people, and yet they designed her to look like this. That's a little funny. But then you leave that aside and look at her Tome lore, and I just roll my eyes. Look, here's the thing. The Hollywood industry is messed up, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of problems in Hollywood, but what makes me mad about this is it ruined a good, fascinating story about a girl who was struggling with abandonment issues and tried to deal with those through reaching for the stars. And instead, we got a story about a girl battling the Hollywood racist elites who can't write for crap unless they're being offensive. It makes no sense. It flies in the face of reality, and frankly, as someone who tried to act himself for a while, it's silly to me. It's just absolutely silly. But hey, it's time to move on from Jane and talk about the killer that came out with her. And if Jane is a thick mama, the next one is a vommy mommy. But we'll talk about that next time in The Fog. Take care.